Well, finally, it's time to bring it in to this series of looking at Marvel films, which the whole point was to lead up to the end. And it is the end, with Avengers Endgame, appropriately titled. Was I surprised by it? Not really. There was a few things I thought I was going to see that didn't happen, most notably the whole Doctor Strange narrative. It's sort of there, but not quite to the level that I thought it would be. He did not put a spell on the Time Stone, for instance. Captain Marvel, does she damage the film? Well, not really. I mean, she's just there in the whole presence of Captain Marvel in the way that she was so badly handled, and disrespectfully so. That's not a respectful way to handle this character that you're just naming as your new star that leads the Marvel Universe. It's such a lazy slap job. Really surprising considering the work that went on with the other films. And just did not weave this character in there when there were so many opportunities to do so with Guardians of the Galaxy and the Thor movies and stuff like that. You could have weaved her, even in Iron Man, you could have had a Carol Danvers character being around with S.H.I.E.L.D. and the military and whatnot, and then later on, pooh, she gets the powers and all that. No, they didn't do that, and because they didn't think of it. And she's not on the level of these other characters. She's one of these background characters within Marvel Comics. They kept trying to make her a bigger star, and it just never caught on. There were some versions of her that I thought were pretty cool in the comics. Not anymore. This new Missandras version they have now is awful, as evidenced by the constant reboots of the title. So, yeah, good luck with that. But the way it was handled and shoehorned in was very sloppy and lazy, and that's got nothing to do with Brie Larson. It still would have been the same problem if Brie Larson was a really nice person, which she is not. But anyway, no, not a whole lot of damage there other than what I just laid out. Now, the other thing about Captain Marvel is that the ending of her movie was the teaser that leads to Endgame, which was the whole reason people went to see Captain Marvel. And goes a long way of explaining that $1 billion profit. It's not Brie Larson. I got people jumped on me on Twitter because I did make fun of her because she won some award about being awful. And I said, well, she finally earned something. And said, yeah, and $1 billion. She didn't earn $1 billion. She earned $5 million. That was her paycheck. The Marvel brand name, the position of the timing of the film, and the saturation of the theaters that they did, that sort of thing, that pushed it over the edge to make that $1 billion. But that was about it. Now, the teaser reveals that she suddenly appears when the Avengers are looking at the pager that Nick Fury had to signal Captain Marvel to come when an emergency happened. Why he didn't use it earlier, who knows? She shows up and, hey, where's Fury? And there it ends. Well, that's not in the movie. So she suddenly appears like an angel and from heaven to save Tony Stark and Nebula as they're trapped on the dead Guardians starship or spaceship, whatever. And she brings them home to the Earth, and there she joins the rest of the Avengers as they're discussing what happened. This is one of these instances where I guess it's a fill-in-the-blank moment for the script where I guess I have to just guess, which I don't like to do. This is not an audience interpretation film. It's not abstract or avant-garde artsy films where that's rather appropriate. But here, it's superhero action, and it's supposed to have a linear narrative. And so when these things happen, it's a mistake. That's why it happened. So did she arrive earlier with that scene, and she talks with the Avengers, and maybe Rocket informs them that my ship is out there. Could you go get it for me? Because he doesn't know about Iron Man. They have no idea that Iron Man ended up teaming up with the other Guardians on Titan. That was rather by accident. They just happened to have the same objective. Now, I suppose it's just Rocket wanted his ship back and wanted her to say, hey, could you check on my friends? Because he doesn't know that they're all dead. All he knew was Groot had died. So that's, I guess, is feasible. So Captain Marvel says, yeah, I'll find it. And so she does. Because of the likelihood that she just happens to show up in all the universe and rescue Tony Stark. But so there you go. I guess that's how you just kind of have to guess that that's what happened. So, well, they're all beaten down, depressed, and then you get a powerful scene and very true in the hollowness of revenge. They find Thanos, they go to him, they confront him, they want the stones. He informs them that he destroyed them so that it cannot be undone. So Thor kills him. he takes good aim at his head, and it's done. And then they're like, there's nothing to do. And that's also very true. It's very hollow and very empty. And they go home, and 5 years go by. And then suddenly Ant-Man appears. He's been in the quantum realm, which is apparently how he escaped the fate of the rest, or maybe not. Maybe he would have survived anyway had he been there, but all his friends were wiped out by Thanos' snap, as we saw at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp. And so he appears, and he's the solution. Not Doctor Strange, it's Ant-Man who shows, hey man, we got to travel through time, because it was 5 years for them, but it was only 5 hours for him. That means time acts differently, and we ought to be able to make a time machine out of that, huh? It's pretty silly, but nevertheless, yes, that's what they do. And at first, Tony's against it. Tony, in 5 years, has married Pepper, as to be expected, and they have a daughter. And it's all very sweet, and it's a perfect, well-deserved, happy ending for Tony Stark. But, damn it, the Avengers show up, and he's against it. He's like, look, this is it. I'm moving on. This is what I've done to make up for it. I'm making new life here. I love my daughter, and I'm all about her. But the idea was put in his head, and he can't leave it alone, and so he works out the equations, what have you, and just to see if it's even. At first he's like, look, this it's impossible, you can't do it. And then boom, of course, he's still a genius, and there it is. Yes, it is possible to use the quantum realm as a time machine to undo what Thanos did. Now, the idea is to go back in time, collect the stones, and come back to their time and undo what Thanos did, which is what they do. And so you have this long adventure, and as a result of Back to the Future style stuff, which is the only way to do this, you get a tour of the Marvel films, and it's kind of nice. You look back where they've come from and all this sort of thing, and you get little elements like the New York battle, where Hulk has to go, and Hulk is, in the 5 years, has managed to combine his intellect with the Hulk persona into one person, so he's basically Bruce Banner in Hulk form. And then that's the comics would do that from time to time as well, so that's all cool. And so they go back, and we discover that the Ancient One had actually been involved in the fight against the Chitauri in the New York battle. And Hulk shows up and says, look, I need that time stone. She's like, yeah, you're not getting it. But then when he tells her that Doctor Strange gave it up willingly to Thanos, she's stunned at this and realizes, well, then he knows something, that this has to happen. And so she hands it over. So in a roundabout way, yes, Doctor Strange affected the ultimate outcome here. And at the end, it's very important when he appears. So, yeah, not quite what I thought it would be, but, it's what they did. So, there you go. That's interesting and cool. So you get those appearances, and they show you how Loki gets arrested and how Hydra got the scepter. They still don't explain why Thanos gave away an Infinity Stone in the form of that scepter to Loki to help out the Chitauri invasion. Because his whole goal was the Infinity Stones. He wanted that one. He wanted the Terrasect, and of course the Time Stone with the Ancient One at that time. So, yeah, that plot hole is never going to be explained. There are tons of plot holes here. Most notably is people able to handle the Infinity Stones, which we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy, where Quill was able to handle it, but only for a short time, and that was only because he's half celestial. Because his father was, Ego, the living planet, otherwise known as Kurt Russell. But Tony Stark, at least, uses his Iron Man glove to hold it, but then Black Widow and Hawkeye, after having been Ronin, we see that because we do see his family get faded away, and he becomes this dark avenging guy, killing criminals because he can't stand that these evil people survived and his family didn't. But anyway, he's recruited for the mission and goes back in time with Black Widow to get the Soul Stone. And, of course, guess what? One of them has to die. So, sadly, it's Black Widow, the sexy one. And so he gets the stone very much like Thanos did. And it's just sitting in his hand. Not possible. Maybe it's because it's the Soul Stone. It doesn't do what the other ones. I don't know. Never gonna explain how Captain Marvel gets superpowers, but no one else does when they're exposed to the Tesseract energy. No, no explanation there. So, of course, are they successful? Yes, they are. You get a lot of cool scenes of Back to the Future, Back to the Past. At one point, they screw up. Loki gets the Tesseract and escapes, so they got to go even further back in time. And Tony gets a chance to meet his father one more time, and it's all very touching. Steve gets to see Peggy one more time, which, of course, sets up his fate, which I suspected would happen rather than just his death, and which doesn't happen. And that's all well and good, and it made sense. They went back and they knew they needed more PIM particles in order for this time travel through the quantum realm to work, and so they just steal some from 1970, the year I was born, and you get a good tribute to Stan there, and all that, and it's all very well and good, and that's probably the best scenes of when they go back in time to do this. And off they go. Meanwhile, Nebula's been helping them out. There was a really Nebula's come a long way, and she's actually quite. And I was hoping that she'd get the kill shot on Thanos, because if anyone deserved it, it was her. And so it's an interesting. You get two versions of Nebula: the past, who's still deeply devoted to Daddy, and the future, when he knows Daddy's a piece of crap, wasting your time, and really you should have loved your sister instead. And then we get Gamora, who is brought back, but she's the Gamora of the past. And she's brought back, and Quill finally reunites when he's resurrected after the snapping of the finger redo brings them all back. And this was a scene where he reunites with Gamora, but she doesn't know him, so she's still mad at him and hates him and kicks him in the balls. And tee-hee, isn't that funny? Poor bastard, you know? But Nebula is still, she's mostly machine, so she's connected to her past self, and this reveals the plot to Thanos, and that's how he tries to prevent it. And he ends up discovering their means by time travel through the quantum realm, and so he brings his whole fleet through it and appears over the Avengers headquarters after the Hulk is able to use the gauntlet the new gauntlet they make, and snap his fingers to bring everybody back. Now, they didn't change time. They just brought everybody back who had died 5 years earlier, and that's key. I'll get to that, why that's a problem. So Thanos attacks. He destroys the Avengers headquarters. They're buried, and they're trying to recover, and Hawkeye ends up with the gauntlet, and he has to try to deliver it or keep it safe. And he thinks he's handing it off to good Nebula, but it's bad Nebula. And then the sister intervenes, and then good Nebula kills old Nebula. Now, divergent timelines is where you can explain why. How come old Nebula didn't die when she kills young Nebula? And it's divergent timelines, and they do give voice to that if you pay attention. So that's how you explain that. And ultimately, the stones do get returned to their proper place in the past, but this would also explain to other timelines. So there's stones in other timelines, but not in the one that they're living in anymore, since Thanos destroyed them. Okay. The big battle happens. Thanos, there's a great confrontation between the three main Avengers, who are the ones who started it all, that being Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America. And Captain America does indeed able to lift the hammer, which Thor brought back from the past. Again, an alternate timeline of what now divergent from what they've created. And he has two hammers, and Steve Rogers gets the other one. Thor is the ultimate depiction of the comedy stepping on the toes of the film, when it's a whole funeral dirge, really. You begin with a funeral and you end with a funeral. It's a very sad movie, really. Even though they do achieve victory, it's very costly. And Thor, I can understand it with the position he's in, that he's broken and he feels defeated and pathetic and depressed. But he's basically Big Lebowski. They even call him that. And he's just there to be laughed at. And for the rest of the film, even in the final battle with Thanos, he's there with his beer belly. And it just, I can understand it being handled some way like that for a little bit, but yeah, it really stepped on the toes. And I mean, I don't know if they're actually going to have him in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. It seems very appropriate that he would be in it, but I don't know if they want to chill out that pay the check for Chris Hemsworth to do one more film. But that's where he ends up. He leaves with the Guardians at the end because he's basically one of them now. He's not really the Thor he started out as. So a lot of cool things there. The battle is raw and just beautiful to behold. And then the ginormous battle because Thanos brought his whole army with him. And boy, they duke it out. And then, yes, Captain Marvel shows up. She has to get some powerful hits in, and he knocks her away, but she doesn't level him or anything like that. And then there's a little brief moment where, girls kick ass. And, I guess that's supposed to be the first movie poster of Brie wants to do an all-female Avengers movie because it's time, damn it. Enough of this all-male Avengers thing because that's what we've been seeing for 10 years. All-male Avengers team. No, it wasn't. What a step backward, huh? So there you go. They do get the victory. There's an emotional scene of the reunion between Stark and Peter Parker, and it's very powerful. But unfortunately, Peter Parker takes up a little too much screen time when Tony Stark is dying, and Tony's wife says, "Okay, Peter, let me say goodbye to my husband." I know he's Spider-Man. He's the biggest star of the Marvel heroes, but yeah. All right, so another problem with Spider-Man here. Tony's died. Iron Man's dead. Yeah, and so is Black Widow. So yeah. But it's appropriate for the story, and it's an ending to him, and it's all very sad. It's very powerful, but he had to do it, and he does it by putting on the gauntlet. And there again, a human being, a mortal man, can't survive it. The Hulk did. Probably should have gave it to Thor. He probably could have done it. But it was in the moment of the battle, and Tony had it, and he had to make a move before Thanos got it again, and he did it. And Thanos gets wiped out, and his whole army, they go. That's what he did with the second snap. So Tony dies. It's all very sad. And with Peter Parker back as Spider-Man, we see where the Avengers go after this is over. And what does Peter Parker do? He goes back to school, and hey, there's his buddy Ned. They're happy to see him, man. We hadn't seen you in a while. And how does that happen? Now, the only conclusion, again, fill in the blank, I guess Ned Leeds disappeared as well. That's the only explanation. Maybe they'll explain that in the next Spider-Man movie, but that's the only way that works. It's not on the screen, but how can he still be in high school 5 years later? And also, Ant-Man meets his daughter, and she's all grown up and actually looking a little too old to be at that age, at the age we last saw her in just 5 years. But that's what they did. So there you go. And I guess the Ant-Man and Wasp third movie will be a handoff to her as the new Wasp or something like that. And so there you go. Thor goes off into space, hands over New Asgard, which is just some crappy little fishing town in Norway. I guess all the super duper sci-fi engineers died on the Asgardian ship, and all that's left is, just the average Joes of Asgard. So Valkyrie is the new king. He didn't call her a queen. Of Asgard. Okay, whatever. Soon to be Captain Marvel's new girlfriend, apparently. Whatever. And so there they go. And Black Panther, well, he's Black Panther. He gets to go back to home to Wakanda where everything's cool. So you got that going for you. And the Doctor Strange moment, Tony asks him, is this the future you saw? The Doctor Strange says, I'm not going to tell you. Then it won't happen if I do. So, and primarily because I think Doctor Strange knew all along that Tony was going to die. And the moment comes and he signals to Tony, this is what you do when he gets the stones and he can make the choice. And the stones he attaches to his Iron Man armor and makes the snap. And so that is the outcome that Doctor Strange foresaw when he looked into the future. So I guess no more Eye of Agamotto. I don't know. It'll be really the one movie I'm looking forward to after all this is Doctor Strange 2. I would like to see that and see where they go with it. But based on what Feige's been saying, they're not looking nothing about plot and character development or nothing, because his big star is Captain Marvel, and they didn't do any character development there at all. Just a bunch of token movies, apparently, with sermons. And if that's the direction they're going, then yeah, I don't really care. So Doctor Strange and I guess maybe the Ant-Man movie, and then I'm done. Because this really is the end. Captain America gets the send-off. He gets to go be with Peggy. He's the one who decides, hey, I'm going to go back and bring the stones back where they belong. And he said, okay. And he goes, and then he never comes back. And they're like, what the hell, huh? And then Bucky notices, hey, look, there's this old man sitting on a bench. It's Captain America. He went back, lived out his life with Peggy. I guess she died like she did in the movie. And now he's this old man with a wedding band, and he hands off the shield to Sam Wilson. So I guess we'll get the Sam Wilson version of Captain America, even though he's developed an identity of his own as the Falcon. If you don't understand the problem with that, I don't know what to tell you. It's his identity. He didn't need someone else's. Get it? I guess not. Same thing with Captain Marvel. Oh, well. All right, there you go. Endgame. It was a good send-off for these characters, as good as it gets, despite the plot holes and flaws here and there, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a few more. But still, all in all, a good send-off. And not too much damage. Certainly nowhere near like what Last Jedi did to Star Wars. No, it really didn't. The Lebowski thing with Thor is, I don't like it, but it's nowhere near. They didn't destroy his morality as Star Wars did with Luke Skywalker. This could still happen with our remaining. They could do it to Black Panther. They could do it to Spider-Man. They could do it to Doctor Strange. I don't know, but it could happen. So... Depending on the direction they're going, you got to tear down your old heroes to make the new ones better, or whatever. Yeah, because Black Panther is black, but he's still a man. So, yeah, don't think he's safe. Don't think that. But anyway, I don't know. The judging between the two, is Infinity War better? I guess in some ways, but it's still a good enough payoff for the setup that Infinity War did. So there you go. What a great 10 years. What a phenomenal achievement for Marvel. Never been done before. And boy, so many studios, god damn, how can we do this? The only other shared universe that's successful is the horror franchise of The Conjuring, which is nowhere near the profitability of Marvel, of course, but still it's successful. So DC, you now have a ginormous opportunity here, and you need to sit down and map something out here to make this happen. For the most part, you're still on a very good path to just do some good standalone movies, but make those characters build something. You can build on that and get there, but they probably won't. The comic books had a grand opportunity. They didn't take it. And as far as that new progressive movement under Marvel Comics, it crashed and burned. Captain Marvel, most notably, what is she on her 8th volume now? Constantly having to be redone and rebooted. Yeah. Well, but maybe the movies will do better. Maybe they'll do better. But they better do a better one than that last one. Because, have a story. That could help. All right, thank you for watching and listening. And please like, share, and subscribe. And for those of you who've already subscribed, thank you very much. And hey, while you're here, yes, take a look at that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores that have plenty of goodies for you.